All right, joining us today is a former World Heavyweight Champion, a man who has wrestled his way across the world from WWE, ECW, TNA, Ring of Honor, and into our living rooms over 25 years. To me, he will always be the new F'n Show. Please welcome Jerry Lynn. Jerry, how's it going?
It is, well, I can't complain. Things are going great. How about you?
Doing great. Like I said, you spent 25 years in the squared circle before retiring. How has retirement been for you, and how has your neck and back been since your surgery?
Well, since retiring, I thought life would slow down a little bit, but it seems like it's gotten busier. I got to get to have, more family time and stuff, and that keeps you really busy. Mm-hmm. So it's a surprise. And then, of course, you got the never-ending to-do list that the wife has for you that never ends. It seems to get longer all the time.
Definitely, yeah. How you been healing, though? Been good?
But my neck, the doc said, he said, I can't promise you it's going to get any better, but we can stop it from getting worse. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much where I'm at. I still have the numbness and tingling down my right arm and my hand and fingers. But at least now, if I get in a car accident or have a bad fall, I won't have get paralyzed, which is what he told me before I had the surgery. And a couple months ago, I did have a pretty good wipeout mountain biking. So and afterwards, I thought, after neck surgery, maybe I shouldn't be going off jumps anymore. And then the low back, I was having some problems with my lower back still. So it had gone out on me a few times. And so I got another MRI done. And he said, because my lowest disc is bulging, and then he said the two joints above it I have quite a bit of arthritis. He said the arthritis might be, mm-hmm. closing in the gaps around the nerves. So he suggested we try some epidurals. So I went through a series of 3 of them spinal injections, and nothing really changed. I still had this pain in my upper left glute and stuff. And, I was talking to my uncle, and he said he had both hips replaced. So I asked him, I said, what are your symptoms? Mm-hmm. And I had the exact same symptoms. So it finally dawned on me after all this, the injections and stuff, and it didn't change a thing. It's got to be my hip, which I figured when I was still wrestling someday, I figured I'd need a hip replacement because of, early on in the career, it's a lot of top rope leg drops.
Sure, yeah.
Then 10 years in, it becomes a second rope leg drop. And then another 10 years, that's a leg drop from the mat.
Yep.
And then, I had to pick a pile driver for a finisher. So, there's more landing on your butt, and then sit out power bombs. So who knows how many thousand times I landed on my butt.
Sure.
So I went, it was a year and a half ago, had x-rays on my hip, and they said I had a lot of arthritis. Well, I just went a few weeks ago and got an MRI on it. And my neurosurgeon, he prescribed it. So, and then he said, when they got the results, I have severe arthritis in my hip. So tomorrow morning, actually, I'm going to the orthopedic to go over the MRI with me and see where we go from here.
Well, I know all the fans out there are wishing you a nice recovery. I know it's going to be a few bumps and bruises along the way, but even going back a little bit too, there was a GoFundMe page raised by Brian Fritz. You got to respect the fans out there. I mean, they love you so much. They were able to help pay for the surgery, and even some of the extra money was donated to the charity, the Nashville Rescue Mission. What would you like to say to the fans that stand up to, because your line of business, you're not actually getting the insurance to cover all these medical needs, and the fans to come together and support you, help you through that. It's got to mean a lot to you, right?
Oh, well, it just, when I didn't at first want to do it, and Fritzy talked me into it, because, when I told him, I said, all right, go ahead, we'll try it. Maybe we can get, hopefully $2,000-$3,000 to help get me to the, past all the deductibles and out-of-pocket costs and stuff. And then I was going to miss, at least a month's worth of work. And when the donations just started pouring in, it just brought tears to my eyes. I was just floored. I mean, there was fans from, literally all over the world. I couldn't believe it. Even countries I'd never been in. It was crazy. And then even, other wrestlers, promoters I used to work for. It was like I said, it brought tears to my eyes. I just couldn't believe it. It was just amazing. Sure. And I have said thank you so many times. I can't say thank you enough. Words just can't.
Well, I think for the fans, exactly. I mean, from the fans, that's at least our thank you for all the years you've given us in the ring. It's a little, something we can help you through it. But do you have any advice to maybe young wrestlers who will go down the path that you have in wrestling as far as you did, on maybe what to look for or when not to be so tough and to listen to your body signs and to go see a doctor? Or is there anything maybe that you went through that maybe you can offer some advice to any wrestlers out there now?
I always used to say when someone says, you got any advice for someone who wants to be a pro wrestler? And I'd always say, go to college first. You have something to fall back on.
Sure.
Because the chances of making it in wrestling are not very great. And now I've actually told, I know one person, and I've told a couple people this. I say, don't overstay your welcome. And I don't mean as far as the fans, I mean as far as your body. I probably should have quit about 8 years before I did. But I think, it's hard to quit.
Sure,
it's hard to stop. Even when your body is telling you and you're starting to feel the aches and pains and you've already had a few surgeries, it's still hard to quit because it's, I've had a lot of different jobs over the years, especially early on in my career when I had to have the regular job supporting my wrestling habit. I'd always get a job through a temp agency and I'd tell whoever I was working for at the time straight up front, I may need to leave town for a week or two, and everyone was always cool with it. But so I've had a lot of different jobs over the years, but wrestling, for the most part, was the only job where I woke up and looked forward to going to work every day.
Nice, all right.
And, there's not a lot of people who can say that.
Sure, of course, yeah. Now, I also mentioned too, you spent 25 years in the ring. I know you're getting some the bumps and bruises are coming back right now, but what would you contribute to the longevity of your career, though? Because not a lot of guys can say they wrestled for that long in the ring.
Probably part of it is when I started, and I started late in life. I was 25 when I started, but I mean, like the era of wrestling then, because as the years have gone by, the bar has been raised higher and higher with how dangerous the moves are and what kind of impact, the impact has increased too. The moves have gotten more dangerous and higher impact. So when I first started, it wasn't as bad as far as, a lot of top rope stuff. And because you're coming down, you weren't coming down from such a big height. And then, as things progress now, especially the last probably 10 years, you got guys bumping on the apron, bumping on the floor, instead of in the sweet part of the ring,
Yep.
So the business has just gotten progressively more and more dangerous, and the more higher impact moves does a lot more damage to your body.
Sure.
Even though whenever I do a seminar, I tell the guys, I say, every time you hit that mat, even if it's what we consider a small bump, like taking a tackle or a clothesline or something, every time you hit that mat, you're doing a little bit of irreversible damage to your body. And it just slowly builds up over time. And one thing I didn't realize till it was too late was the older you get, too, the more damage every bump does to your body. So it was, it's a learning experience, but, even, I don't know, I guess early on in my career, you never even think about quitting. And then, later on in the years, well, maybe, I don't know. There was a time where I thought, I'm not going to quit till my body says. And sure enough, that's what I did, which was kind of foolish because there's a lot of things. I've always been a very active person, and there's a lot of things I can't do now.
Sure.
Like water skiing or snow skiing or, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of dangerous, your most notable time in wrestling for me was in ECW. I know it's a place, too, where you said you never thought you would end up going, but you did anyway. Can you tell us your first impression of ECW and what you thought of it before you even went there?
Well, when I wrestled for WCW, I lived in Atlanta, and I'd get together with my buddy. I think it was like on at 2 o'clock in the morning on some obscure cable channel, and we'd watch ECW. And then, you had these guys would be brawling out in the ring, and the fans would be just handing over the rail them weapons, like frying pans and microwave ovens and, Super Nintendos and anything you can think of. And they're just clocking each other over the head with frying pans and stuff. And then you had Balls Mahoney and Sandman standing there and trading chair shots, and those chairs were just about folded in half. It was crazy, and I even said to my buddy, I said, "That's one company I will never work for." And then when I was done with WCW, I had a tryout match with WWF against Taka Michinoku, and when that aired, I think that Paulie realized I wasn't under contract anymore, so we had Chris Candido call me up. And Chris calls me up and says, "Yeah, Paulie wants to know if you'd like to do a couple shots for ECW." And I said, and I was worried that I wouldn't have any work after just getting released. So I told him, okay. I said, "Here's how much I want, and one more thing." I said, "I don't want some idiot hitting me in the head with a frying pan." And he said, No. We got our brawlers and we got our wrestlers. So, but, I realized that wrestling was changed, obviously was changing. And if I wanted to survive in the business, I had to be willing to change a little bit with the business also.
Sure.
So I couldn't tell you how many times I got hit in the head with that kendo stick and went through tables and had RVD kick a chair through my skull. And so, but, like I said, things change, and if you want to survive, you got to be willing to change with it.
Sure. Now, speaking of RVD, one of your greatest rivals was RVD. You guys would give pay-per-view quality matches everywhere you worked. What was it about the chemistry with you two that just made you want to work harder? Is there anything that drove you guys to just, give those great matches everywhere you went?
Boy, I think it was just, we were challenging ourselves, and at the same time, we were making it fun for ourselves, and it was a real challenge because we were trying to give the people something they hadn't seen before, because we were two good guys, and most of the time, years ago, and a lot of times people never wanted to see two good guys wrestle each other. They just want to see a good guy and a bad guy, Mm-hmm. And if you had two good guys out there, a lot of people considered it boring. So I guess we were just trying to make it exciting and fun. And we played rough. It seemed like just about every match, either Rob or I or both of us would be popped open. So it was fun, but it was rough at the same time. And AJ Styles, he described it very well after he wrestled with Rob. He said, when Rob hits you with something, it's like being hit by a Buick, because Rob is really solid. Uh-huh. He's built.
Yep. You're the best of both worlds, as you wrestled as a cruiserweight, but you also wrestled as a heavyweight. Not a lot of guys can do that or say they did that. To you, did it matter one way or the other, or did it bother you of not being always labeled as a heavyweight and just a cruiserweight sometimes? Or you did a bunch of each, right?
Well, I would always, I guess, what would get frustrating at times is I felt like I dug myself into the spot where when a lot of different promoters would book me and stuff, they wanted to see a half-hour X Division extravaganza,
Yeah.
And, when you're doing those type matches, you're taking a lot of bumps and it takes its toll on you. Or else it would kind of bother me when people would just want you to go out there and just do a train wreck match. Well, then I feel like I'm taking bumps for nothing, you know.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a match that involves a lot of people. Well, not really a lot of people, because then you don't have to do as much because everyone takes their turns doing stuff. But when they ask for a match where they just want a nonstop train wreck, then you can't really go out there and tell a story and have every bump mean something, you know. And that's what I mean by taking bumps for nothing. And I feel like I'm doing damage to my body for nothing then.
Sure, yeah.
But so it would get frustrating at times, because I still want to go out there and take the people and give them that emotional roller coaster ride throughout the match. And there's a lot of times where they didn't want you to do that. And
sure.
to me, it didn't make sense.
Yep. Now,
but, it didn't matter who I was wrestling, whether it was another X Division guy or a heavyweight guy or whatever. I always still tried to tell a story and have the match actually make sense, because we're not actually supposed to be out there running around like chickens with our heads cut off and just doing moves for the sake of doing moves. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. Now, WWE has brought back the Cruiserweights with their new division and the show 205 Live. Do you think these guys will ever ever have the chance to break out of that division and be seen as a possible top mid-card guy, or if not a main eventer? Or do you think, with that now in place, you think all those kind of guys with those body frames, those body weight, will just forever be the Cruiserweights?
Well, you never know. You can never say never, because when you even look at the main roster now, there's a lot of smaller guys on the main roster now than there ever used to be 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, because 20 years ago, it was the land of the giants for the most part. So, and look at Mysterio had a good run there. And, so you never can say never.
Sure.
You never know what's going to happen. There's so many guys now that are the top stars there in WWE that I wrestled 15 years ago on the indies. So you never know where you're going to end up.
Sure. Now, there's a lot of wrestling happening each week today. Does anybody out there today remind you of a young Jerry Lynn, or is there anybody on your radar that you enjoy watching?
I don't know if I'd call them young Jerry Lynn. They're all so much better than me. There's guys that really, catch my eye and stuff. And like I said years ago when I had I think it was right around close to when I was getting ready to retire, that Mike Bennett, he always really stood out to me, because I watched him in Ring of Honor just walking to the ring and not saying a word, just his look on his face and his mannerisms, and he had the crowd hating his guts just doing that. And I just thought, wow, he gets it. And Adam Cole, and Adam Cole, just during the match, he would tell so much of the story with just the expressions on his face and stuff. So, I mean, there's quite a few guys out there that are, and that Neville, he's amazing. Just,
definitely
can do such amazing things. I mean, there's so much good talent out there.
We also have a few messages from fans out there. Vladimir Joseph from Connecticut, he says, who thought of the Mr. JL gimmick, and what was the purpose, he was asking.
I came up with the gimmick, not the name. And at the time, I had already been going to Japan quite a few years for this lucha company over there and for Michinoku. And, got to see a lot of cool mask gimmicks. And I think it was about, I'm trying to think, 7 years in or something like that. I thought, after going over there so much, I thought, well, no one's doing a mask gimmick in the States. So, and at the time, the Power Rangers were big. And so, and I had talked to Brad Ringens, the guy who trained me. He had asked me to come out to his camp and help train some of the guys. And I asked him, I said, Brad, it's been 7.5 years. I said, what do I got to do to get a break. And he said, well, the business has changed. It's all TV now. He says, you got to come up with something that stands out and grabs people's attention and keeps them from changing the channel. And so that's what turned the light bulb on with the mask gimmick. Uh-huh. And at the time, I had been working at a screen printing shop, and so I got one of the guys in the art department to help me design the outfit. And I told him I wanted something that was sort of like Power Rangers, but not exactly something alien-like. And he came up with that design. And when I showed Brad, he took pictures and video of me rolling around the outfit and stuff and sent it to the office in WCW, and they said that's exactly what they've been looking for. So I went down there, and they asked me, what do you want to be called? And I'm throwing out some names like the Phantasm or the Cyber Knight or something, you know.
Sure.
And they said, well, we don't want to just, and this was all at the last minute. This is like a half hour before the show started. And they said, well, we don't want to just slap a name on you without researching any copyright infringements. And they said, oh, what the heck? Call him Mr. JL. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. You know, and I invested over $1,200 into getting the outfit made. And I'm like, you gave me that name? And I was like,
oh, man. We have another question, too, from Randy Hammond, and it's almost a two-part question because I have the second part I want to ask for it. So he's saying, what do you remember about your match with RVD at Hardcore Heaven 1999 in Poughkeepsie, New York? Now, that's our hometown in Poughkeepsie. But my part to this question would be, do you remember you fell off the top rope in the match, and I think you bashed your head on the cement floor. Did that change any of the plans for the match, or do you even remember the whole match from that moment? Because from my point of view, being there live, it looks like you really hit your head pretty bad on that floor.
I did, and people say something like, how did you continue the match after being knocked out? I said, I wasn't knocked out. I said, I wish I was, so I wouldn't have felt the pain because it hurt bad. It felt like my head was in two chunks.
Oh.
But, yeah, I was just going to, roll off the top rope to the apron and to the floor, and my foot got caught on the middle rope, and I missed the apron and went face first to the floor, and that was actually the third time that month I broke my nose, and then had to go to the emergency room and get my head stitched shut after the match, after the show, and but it hurt a lot. And I'm laying there, and the ref comes over and says, "You okay?" And I said, "No, I'm effed up." And then Rob comes over and he stomps on my head, and I'm just like, "Leave me alone!" And then the ref comes over again. I think at first I told him, I said, just tell him to roll me in the ring and pin me.
Yeah.
And I think Rob stalled a little longer, and I think he even stomped on my head again. And I was just like, please stop. Anyway, by the time he got me up on the apron, the pain had subsided a little. So I said, screw it, let's go, let's keep going.
Wow.
And so it didn't really change anything in the match.
Sure, yeah.
So,
wow.
But I just remember after the match, I'm walking back through the curtain, and Paulie's there, and he says, that was the greatest match I've ever seen. And I said, it sucked. I hated it. And I was knocked pretty loopy, and Nova, he said he took me outside and said, let's get some fresh air. And it helped. I needed some air.
Sure, yeah.
But it was a rough month, though. It was, having my nose broke 3 times in 1 month. So.
Sure. And now last question, too, from Russell Jaff. He's asking, your memories or any stories that stand out to you from your Ring of Honor run towards the end with the belt. Was it designed to be a direct parallel to the wrestler in the planning or design?
I think that's what they were going for, was, but I think they waited too long because, the movie had already been out for a while, I think. Mm-hmm. But having the run there was hard because, and I got a lot of flack because, Ring of Honor's known for being for younger guys, so I was pretty old for being there. So there was a lot of pressure, but to do well, but the pressure was all from myself. I've always been my own worst critic.
Sure, yeah.
And so I always put a lot of pressure on me, and I knew, and I was 46, 47, 46 when I was there. And you got all these guys who are in their, early 20s, and I've got to try and keep up with these guys, and it wasn't easy, so I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it was hard, but I was still proud of what I did, because there were certain times where during the match, especially when I had the belt, during the match on certain shows, the people actually were biting and thinking I was going to lose the belt. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to get them to do on a house show, or, what they would consider a B show,
Sure.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some moment, I was proud of what I did there, even though I knew I was up in my years and I couldn't go like I used to, but I did my best for at the time with what was left in my body and what was left in the gas tank. And, but it was hard.
Sure. Jerry, I could talk to you all day if I could, but, the reason why you're here, January 27th from 4 to 5:30 p.m., you'll be having a seminar before Fight for the Mind 2 in Murfreesboro, Tennessee at the National Guard Armory. What can the students attending expect from a Jerry Lynn seminar?
Well, there's so much to cover, and I really don't have a set planned routine what I do, because there's so much. It's just you wouldn't believe how much there is to cover.
Sure.
And so there'll probably be things I won't even remember to cover, but I will do my best to show them things that will take them from looking indie-rific to a professional. And there's so many little. Even the smallest. There's such small, minute details that will make all the difference in the world, besides other things. But, I always try and help them, with psychology and there's so much. There is so much.
Sure,
and
yeah.
We don't have a lot of time, but I will try and squeeze as much in as we can.
Definitely, and
also
just to be able to train with one of the greats, that's the price, well worth the price. But you were saying?
Well, you never stop learning. I wish I was still wrestling, because I feel like I still only know a drop in the bucket. And that was the one thing I loved about wrestling, is you never stop learning. You're constantly learning every time you get in that ring. And I was also going to mention that Buffalo Wild Wings is sponsoring the show by Stones River Mall. And from open to close, if you go there and mention Best of the Best Wrestling, they will donate to the charity, which is the Alzheimer's Association. 10% of your bill will go to the Alzheimer's Association.
That's great, yeah.
And there also is going to be a meeting I think throughout the day. It's going to be like an all-day deal. There's going to be different times throughout the day, different wrestlers there doing meet and greets at Buffalo Wild Wings. And I think 3:30 to 5, it's going to be Tommy Dreamer and Rebel from TNA. And then after all that, there will be a VIP meet and greet at the Armory from 5:45 to 6:45, and then at 6:45 they'll open the doors for everyone. And the show starts at 7:30. And also the show will be available on iPay-per-view on Fight TV the following day, Saturday the 28th. So if you can't make it, you can check it out on iPay-per-view.
Definitely. I also want to mention, too, for all the fans out there listening, too, and for anybody that wants to go to the seminar with Jerry Lynn, and I don't know why you wouldn't want to go, but the best in class will be in a match during the Fight for the Mind 2 event. So another reason to show up for the seminar, guys, if you're listening out there. And just to reserve your spot now, if you head out over to wrestling.com/FFTM, you can get more information on that. That's IYFwrestling.com/FFTM. So just another reason to attend the seminar, right? The best in the class will actually be on the show.
Yep, they always do that to me. They make me the bad cop. So I got to pick one and say, the rest of you suck. No, just kidding. But it's just more pressure.
That's right.
I'm trying. Oh, also, there's a special referee. The MTSU head football coach, Rick Stockstill, is going to be the special referee for the match between Chase Stevens and Chris Michaels. So I'm trying to think if there's any other goodies. There's so much going on that day, but you got Tommy Dreamer, Rebel, Chase Stevens, one half of the Naturals from TNA. You got Dr. Tom Pritchard's going to be there. Tracy Smothers, which is every locker room needs Tracy, and I can't I'm Jones and I hear Tracy say everybody dies.
Well, Jerry, I mean, it's been a blast. I really appreciate your time tonight. Are you into the social media universe at all? Can fans keep up with you anywhere?
I'm slowly trying to get into it, but I'm not fully into it yet.
Sure.
So,
right. Well, so stay tuned for everybody, right?
Yes, but I was going to plug. When I had my neck surgery, a couple fans designed T-shirts for me, and then actually Wolfie D from PG-13. He's a great artist and does great stuff, and he designed a T-shirt for me. So there's a few T-shirts at Pro Wrestling Tees you can check out. And trying to think what else there is going on. Not really much right now. I haven't really been pursuing much, but I'm gonna try and start getting out there a little more.
Sure. Well, if you're ever up in the Northeast, I know the fans up here would love to see you. And Jerry, once again, I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.